Yeah, yeah. No, it's been good so far. I've been looking over a lot of your stuff, so I was thinking we'll just kind of dive straight in if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Ash, I've been looking over, let's say, I've been looking over your work, and it's looking phenomenal. So you're a director, animator, and editor at Sonora Films. BAFTA nominated for My Dad and the Volcano editing work, and
Yeah.
the list of work here as well. The Boulder, Thrawn, Darkroom, Miss She. We'll go over all of this, but yeah, this is phenomenal stuff. It really is really looking good.
Thanks.
That's good. So the most recent thing when we spoke the last time you were talking about the documentary, is that Thrawn? Is that the documentary you're talking about?
It is, yeah.
We could just get
So
started there if you like.
absolutely. Thrawn has been an idea for a really long time, to be honest. I was always talking to people about making something around the dynamic of Scots language. Most people I know have got a phone voice and then they've got their real voice that they use when they're just chatting to folk they know. And this has kind of opened up a lot of conversations about kind of being Scottish and how we're kind of proud of who we are, but we're also a lot of the time a bit embarrassed about being Scottish. There's some things that come with that people aren't super excited to engage with. And in some of my work, I was making a short documentary about Scottish traditions that I felt were going to disappear, like once, my grandparents' generation weren't around anymore. And I've begun to really kind of dig into this kind of phenomenon where, yeah, there's a kind of mixture of pride and shame. And a lot of it was really framed around language and how you sound. And I started talking to people about that, and this idea that like Scots itself as a language is really complicated. Lots of people don't see it as a language, they see it as slang. When I was at school, you always get told not to speak in Scots, and you were always given into trouble or told you're being cheeky. But then in other ways, it's celebrated. And then last year, the Scottish government reinstated it as a proper language. And I was like, this is so confusing for people who live here and folk who've grown up with Scots because you can't just overnight change into, okay, we'll embrace it again. And there's all these stigmas about, sounding uneducated or sounding like a Ned
Mm.
and changing who you are depending on who you're speaking to. And so I'm unpacking a lot of that in this documentary and sort of going on a journey to discover how do we not feel ashamed about Scots and being Scottish in the future.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's really exciting. And that thing there he talked about about how it sounded related to education. That's one of the main things that I remember is that when you're at school, the more the closer you sounded to upper middle class in English, the more educated you appeared. And I think that's what it seemed to be. So the more you spoke in Scots, the more it implied almost that your education was less, which is obviously completely incorrect.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, where this comes from and sort of digging into why for some folk, because when I was a wee girl, there's videos of me sounding really broadly Ayrshire. And then I've obviously made that connection at school and gone, well, the teachers will give me into trouble and I'll sound like an idiot. So I'm going to try and sound differently. And I know I'm very aware of that happening throughout my life. And I can remember specific moments where folk would tell me the way I'd said something sounded like too Ayrshire or too Scottish. And I start smoothing it all out. And you're right, like, if you grow up in that environment, like you just sort of associate your own culture and who you are with something negative. And I think
Mm,
that has implications beyond just how you speak to folk. That's one level.
yeah.
There's another level where it impacts how folk just got on with their life
Mm.
and what you aim for and your goals and what you do with yourself. So it's been quite a like interesting journey making this documentary because I think it's unpacked a lot more than I bargained for, but
Right.
it'll make a good documentary.
Good. No, good. I'm excited about seeing it. Do you have a timeline for when you're expecting to release it?
So we started filming, it's very slow, because as a documentary, I'm going on this journey, traveling across Scotland and speaking to different folk. So it all depends on when they're available and what's happening in Scotland. But we filmed an interview about a year ago with Karen Dunbar, and then we filmed at the start of the year up in Dundee at an event called Blether. And there's lots of other things in the pipeline. Right now, we're filming right up until like April, May, but
Right.
I'm hoping to edit it at the same time. So a wee bit unconventional, but it's because of the nature of it. It's like I'm discovering the story as I go along. So hopefully this summer there will be a sort of finished version and then we'll find a place to screen it. and invite everybody out.
Excellent, excellent. I hope to be there. I mean, actually when we think about the notion of the Scots language being implied to be uneducated and stuff like that, it's quite ironic considering the like disproportionate number of innovators that have came out of Scotland.
hmm
You know, it's like Scotland has like a massive archive of people that have been really contributed towards human society technologically.
It's very true. And there's always been this slight dynamic, and you can see if you dig into the history of it, people have written about how some Scots have very much stayed engaged with the language and they've spoken in Scots. And sometimes they've found that that's a barrier in terms of like working with others and putting themselves out there and like the things they've gone on to do, all those significant achievements, like they've had to kind of have a very clean English in their back pocket for
Mm,
certain moments, or some folk have abandoned it altogether. And it is quite confusing because, like you say, there's so much to be proud of.
yeah.
And clearly within Scotland, there's like really great minds, there's innovation. I think that's something we're trying to get back to at the moment as well. Like it feels like there's this real push to sort of re-engage with that side of Scottish identity and encourage a lot more folk to
Mhm.
go out and do these kind of things. But I do think that in the kind of current landscape, where if you do feel like, oh, I can't just be myself, I
Mhm.
can't just speak the way I speak, and you know, if I do make a breakthrough or I do something really cool and interesting, how are people going to take that? Are they going to laugh? There's obviously a great example at the moment. I mean, for all the achievements we've had, um, James McAvoy's new film,
All right.
California Scheming.
Right. Yeah.
So those two, it's based on a true story, and those two guys basically went out and tried to find a record contract as rappers and got laughed off stage for
Oh,
being
that's right.
Scottish,
Yeah.
just for that simple fact. But then when they disguised themselves as Californians, they were taken seriously and they were given that record deal. They were given money. They were on TV. They were playing gigs. So you think about that dynamic and what that really says to Scottish folk if they live it day to day, that
Mhm.
like, yeah, you can be successful and you are really good at what you do, but only if you hide who you are.
Yeah.
So I'm really, really interested in that part and taking it out of the equation and saying, well, what if we don't hide who we are and we still get to be good at what we do?
That's really good that you're doing that, and it is one of those things. I think it might be attached to like implied class status, where it's the Scottish language would be lower class in the context of like the hierarchy of class structure. I think it might be residue from there potentially as well.
Definitely. I think that this is something that's very ingrained in Britain and you don't find as intensely in other kind of Anglospheres. So like I don't think the US quite understand how much class and what people think of you in your class
Mm,
impacts so much of your life. And it's linked with language and accent. It's seen as, lower classes don't have a good grasp of English. And that's why Scots is what we, and it's like, it's not that at all.
mm,
There are some really beautiful words in Scots, and there's some really great phrases and language that just doesn't directly translate because it's just so unique to how we speak and who we are and where we've come from and how that language has risen up. And what I love about it is as well within Scotland and across the UK, there's all these little localisms. Like I
yeah.
don't understand much of Doric.
Yeah.
Up in Aberdeen, they're on a different wavelength. They're
Yeah.
doing that thing. And in Dundee, they've got the Ori and all the language that comes around with that. Down in Ayrshire, there's a whole load of stuff. And sometimes I try to sort of articulate like what certain words are, and I just can't. I can never really describe to anyone what Hanek means, but you know what it means if you live in Ayrshire.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, have you ever seen the film Frozen? And I think it's Frozen anyway. And they've got like, no, it's not. It's Brave, and they've got all the different
Yeah.
Scottish clans, and then like
Yeah.
four of them are lining up, and three of them speak, and then it comes to the Aberdeen one, and nobody understands them.
100%. And yeah, that's like what it's like in Scotland. Like there's still that barrier between regions. And like I think it's a nice moment now where folk are a bit more open to learning and recognizing that it is language. Because if you don't understand what someone's saying, then clearly they are speaking another
Yeah,
language.
exactly. And the thing is, internationally, it's Scottish culture is attractive. You know, that's why. If I mean, the way I'm working, there's like a really diverse range of people internationally, and it's interesting
Mhm.
how well you're received and how much people like they respond to. how often I hear you've got a really strong Scottish accent, and sometimes it comes across cool, but other times you do a full sentence and you can see them looking at you and just glazed over like, what? There's
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
it's funny,
Um,
there's a lassie at my work who's Indian, and every single time I'm speaking, by the time I finish, she looks at me, she's like, eh, and that's all she says. The most Indian accent ever. It's really funny.
I know. Sadly, for me, when I went to uni, I started getting that, and that genuinely terrified me because I was like, oh shit, if they don't understand me, they're not going to work with me ever again. They're not going to bring me into this circle. And when I got into working in telly and like film, there's more of a TV scene in Scotland than there is a film scene, but
Mm,
I just didn't hear other people speaking that way. And so for me, it was very much like you've just got to leave that all behind. That only exists in Ayrshire when you go and visit your mum and dad. This doesn't exist when you're professional and making stuff.
mm,
And so it's been in the last like 5 years, I would say, that I've begun to feel a bit sad that, in actual fact, sometimes I'd speak to international people and they'd be like, "Oh, you're from Scotland?
yeah.
You don't sound Scottish." I was like, "Oh my God, what have I done?" So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been kind of nice coming back to that and feeling like you can do it without embarrassment and shame. And then also, it's kind of nice to share a little bit of your culture with folk and give
Yeah.
them a wee piece of like, oh, here's why we say that and what it means.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think? I mean, you touched on it there a little bit, the film industry in Scotland and largely the independent film industry. Where do you think it's at the moment? I've seen one of your posts when you're talking about you think it's on the cusp of something great. Could you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. I do think it's challenging at the moment.
Mm,
It has been for a couple of years. So I don't want people to think that I just have this like overly positive and naive view of where we're going. But so I started Sonora because the industry was in dire straits.
mm,
I felt like I was kind of powerless to loads of opportunities disappearing, companies shutting down, commissions drying up. And I found myself in a place where I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't have anything to work on. I don't have anything to work towards.
mm.
Like, what's going on here? And I started working in online content for a wee while to pay the bills.
Yeah.
And from that, I sort of learned a lot about that world and realized that what you can do with online content is nurture community. So I started talking about what was going on. My first video was called What the Fuck is Happening in the Scottish Screen Industry?
Typically Scottish, love
Because I was
it.
like, we've got to find out.
Yeah.
So, and it was taking a look at where we were at. And this was in 2024. So I started making videos, taking a look, really examining like what's happening in the scene, what kind of things people can do to stimulate the industry or to keep themselves going creatively, what opportunities are out there to apply for. Yeah, just like really sharing as much as I possibly could. Then interviewing folk as well about how they were making things happen for themselves. And I've begun to sort of like learn quite a lot about how this industry is operating at the moment. And even Screen Scotland, like, I know people are very, very critical of them, but they were absolutely open to chatting. And although I've never managed to capture them on camera yet, they gave me loads of information about their plans and how it all works and operates. And then eventually I started kind of examining other countries and how their systems were set up, because there's some really amazing examples out there of industries that don't rely on like a Hollywood system to keep them going and kind of other film industry systems that previously have worked, but right now in the 2020s just are completely falling apart and like are kind of changing in shape. So anyway, after doing all of this research, I kind of started making these connections between what Scotland was doing and what other countries had been doing, countries that had built up really strong cultural power, countries where what they put out into the world is something that people anticipate and the world over are kind of like, oh, have you seen, like those Korean dramas or Japanese anime or like Ireland has got a really strong creative scene in comparison to Scotland,
Mm,
which has been nurtured over the last like 10, 15 years. And I realized that what we were doing now is the same thing. So everything that's being set up at the moment will then in 5 to 10 years keep us in a more sustainable place
mm,
and have more like kind of set things up so that it's not just come and use Scotland, come and film here and like pretend it's not Scotland, pretend it's New York, pretend it's somewhere else. Um, we're actually going to more towards a direction where what is created here is by and for Scottish people, but has the legs to travel the world and tell our stories in other spaces and build up this intrigue and excitement for what Scotland's putting out. So all of the signs point to that direction. It's not active at the
Mm.
moment in terms of filmmakers are not experiencing like an abundance of opportunity and money and the ability to do whatever the hell they want right now. But I think in the near future, there is going to be a lot more of that accessible and available. And even like the last few years, I've been going to loads of festivals and like getting out into the film markets of the world. In 2021, I went to Cannes. I didn't meet another Scottish person there the entire time. And I was in the south of France for 3 weeks, and just, everybody was kind of like, oh, really, Scotland? Do they have a film scene? And then last year, 2025, Scotland had their own showcase at the market. There was a Screen Scotland like reception. Lynn Ramsay, of course, was in competition. And we start to get into the area of like what defines Scottish film at that point. But I felt so much more presence and I was meeting folk whilst I was there, just standing in the queues and I'd see a kilt half a mile away and I'd be like, oh my God, another Scot, that kind of thing, like this eruption of us actually being out there and present in the film world has like really taken off. So yeah, I do have a positive outlook. I appreciate that at the moment it's quite challenging, but it feels like everything that's set up at the moment is building a better future. And I feel like this is where you need to get on board now in any way that you can. Fair enough, you may have applied for some schemes and you've not been accepted, but if you can be creating right now and establishing yourself as a presence in the Scottish film scene when the time comes around, then you're ready to go. You have all this evidence that you're a great filmmaker and you've got the knowledge of the industry, so you're ready for it.
Mm. That's really encouraging. I mean, the past few weeks I've been speaking to a handful of Scottish filmmakers and creatives and stuff, and it just seems like it's like a bricks and mortar indie industry that's been constructed for 10, 15 years time. And I think it's quite fascinating to watch this, like the slow progress of people that are like working jobs whilst doing this at the weekend, and it's that kind of
Hmm.
thing. And you can see that will flip over. So, I mean, for myself, like I've been building the Donnie movie for the past 2 years. So that's what this character is here. And it's a Scottish animation because I'm the same. Like, I feel that there's a massive void. There's like a massive
Hmm.
void. And there is no Scottish long-term animation series. There is no Scottish version of The Simpsons and
Yeah.
things like this. And let's say there's, I think for the past 5 years, that's the main aim for what I'm attempting to achieve. It's like the Donnie movie will be ready at the end of this year. It'll be like about an hour and 20 minutes, something like that. Every single scene is drawn by hand. It's all paper and pencil. I've got folders full of sheets of paper.
Fantastic.
And it's like that's one of the interesting things that, as we are talking about earlier, is the accent. The amount of times, because I'm doing all the voices and stuff, give or take a few
Ah.
characters, and the amount of times that when I do the first couple of recordings and it's so quick, and I'm listening to it back, but when in 2 seconds before it, I thought I spoke really slowly, but then I'm listening to it back and I'm struggling. So it's exciting to think that the as long as you just keep chipping at the tree, eventually it'll fall down.
Yeah, that's it entirely. Yeah. And oh my God, animation is such a labor of love
Mm.
because even if you are working with a lot of money and a lot of time, it is such a long process.
Yeah,
So you've really got to love what you're doing to get yourself to the finish line. So well done.
no, I
And it'll be
appreciate that.
exciting to see that because that's like another level of, what Scotland's putting out there. A
Mm.
big people that people keep bringing up to me that the Scottish film scene for a long time has just felt like kitchen sink drama,
Mm.
dismal, miserable. It sucks here. And it's so lovely that there's like so many folk out there making something much more fun and
Mm.
interesting,
Yeah.
moving away from that space and like, yeah, thinking outside
Yeah.
the box.
Yeah, no, I mean it's funny because a lot of the time I'm doing this. It's I said that in the podcast the other week, whereas I'm looking forward to the film being ready so I can watch it. That's what it feels like, you know. It's because it is.
I
It's like
know.
a drama style thing, but there's comedy through it and stuff, and it's good. You know, it's I've got people at work that they call me Donny. They don't get,
Oh.
you know. So it's these kind of things, and it's interesting when you show people. It's that thing where you tell the people about the work you're doing initially, and they have almost like a humor, like they almost humor you a bit, and they're like, yeah, yeah, very good. And when they show you it, the look in their eye changes, and they're like, oh, this is a
Mhm.
serious thing. Like even though it's comedic and it's colourful and stuff like that, they could see that there's a sincerity behind what you're attempting to achieve in the future. And I think that that's one of the things as a creator that I think one of the hurdles I had to come across was initially I felt embarrassed that I was making these things because I was like, oh, you know, you felt kind of timid because you didn't think it was possible. And then if, after a certain period of time, people receive it to the level of professionalism you're wanting to promote it to.
Absolutely. And you're so right. It feels like if it's just you and your own and you're at home and you're just chipping away at a personal project, how could anybody take that seriously?
Mm.
Like, it's not the perception of what working in film and animation and TV is. You know, people imagine this like big sprawling set with like loads of people or like tons and tons of animators at computers and all this kind of stuff. But actually, so much is made by individuals pushing through, and you kind of have to go through that stage at some point anyway, like in order to get anything made. Like even if you
Mm.
were going to pitch for tons of money, you've still got to sit down and make some materials to convince
Yeah,
people that that's what you need to do. When I was crowdfunding for Thrawn, I filmed the pitch video in my living room
right.
and just, we've got these light bulbs in our house that you can change the color on your phone. I didn't have professional lights, so I was like, right, we're just going to put them in the background and we'll make it blue, and that's going to tell people this is about Scotland. And, just like grabbed a bunch of things I had sitting around and was like, let's get fun with the props, and, we'll do like a sort of school thing as well.
Mm.
And yeah, it just sort of fell into place based on what I had at my disposal. And you're right, you feel like a tit. You're sitting there in your living room in a tartan dress going like, please give me money. But then that took off and,
Mm.
like it was enough. The crowdfunder hit its target and then went beyond, and then it ended up in the paper, and then it's invited all these people to come in and talk about it too. And so just by like getting over the embarrassment and fear, and sitting in my living room and doing that, now it's opened up more possibilities. So yeah, you're right. And if you believe in your work and you do it to the best of your ability, then you'll get that reaction from folk. The
Yeah.
look in their face changes and the spark comes up and goes, "Oh, you're actually really good at
Yeah, and the
that."
thing is, they want to then be a part of it. It's funny. People want to be a part of what's popular, and I think when they see something that's kind of like sparkly and shiny, and they're like, "Oh, I would like to be here." So often
Exactly.
you hear people echoing like when it all takes off. Remember that you were speaking to me about it. That happens often, you know,
Yeah.
which is quite funny. But it's funny you talking about pushing through. That your one of your the pieces of work you made was the boulder, which encapsulates exactly that. You know, could you talk a wee bit about
It is. That I made that at the same time as I started Sonora. That was very much my frame of mind. Yeah, I mean, I felt it. I felt the disappointment and the sort of defeat of the industry around me just falling apart at that moment. So specifically, I had been working as a freelancer for a few years and I loved the lifestyle, but like it's so difficult to keep yourself afloat
that?
and keep jobs on the horizon and constantly manage your savings. And then, like when you're getting paid, you have no idea most of the time. So I'd really put the time in and I was getting to the point, I was kind of ready for the next level. I had made a short film with little pictures in GMAC, and that was like my first funded Screen Scotland project. And I was like, this is it. I'm finally on the pipeline. I'm actually going to like realize my dreams after all these years. And then I had been forming an application for, it was called Sharp Shorts, and I think it was run by Short Circuit. I always sometimes get them mixed up. But anyway, I had been working on my application for this for 4 months because I'd had a conversation with Screen Scotland and they were like, that's the next step. And the pipeline is to go through that in order to access features and other opportunities and other funding. So if you hadn't gone through this yet, you were still kind of at that stage. So 4 months of putting an application together, had a one-on-one with the talent scout, went along to their information sessions, and this was it. And I know that I could have been rejected, but like I really invested as much as I could to make this happen. And then one day in April 2023, 2024, it just closed. And that was it. And there was no further way forward. And it was in that moment that I was like, well, first of all, I'm going to start sharing what it's like working in this industry because I'm just like really tired of feeling alone.
Mm.
And there's just got to be more people going through this. And it might make me feel a wee bit better if we can speak about it. And then I decided I was going to make the boulder because I was like, well, now that there's not this opportunity in front of me, when is the next opportunity going to come along for me to make a short film and to make something that reflects where I'm at creatively now? And I was like, I can't wait for funding to come back around. I mean, it has taken a year and a half for Screen Scotland to have the new iteration of that. And then there's the submission process. And, we still don't have any short films that have been funded at that level since the Sharp Shots shut down. So it came from a place of, I do not want to wait anymore. I do not want to have to sit around for these things to start coming back in. I'm just going to make something now. And in that moment, I genuinely felt like my life was Sisyphus pushing the boulder up the hill. But it was very collaborative in terms of coming up with the story and making it. I told people around me that this is what I was going to do, and they all started jumping in with their own anecdotes. Quite a lot of things that happen in the film were based in real life. So our producer did in fact have a conversation with his gran where she said that basically his cousin who was a drug dealer was doing better than he was. It's amazing. And I was like, yep,
Yeah, yeah.
that's what it's like.
No, I really enjoyed it. It was really entertaining and relatable, because I'm in exactly that same positions. I've been doing this since about 20, was it 16, something like that, give or take, like illustrating, trying to make illustrated books and stuff like that. And then started animating about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. The first film that I did was, I was fortunate enough I made it, it took about a year to make, and then premiered it in Kirkcaldy at Adam Smith Theatre, which was really cool. That's an experience that I want to replicate as many times as
Mhm.
possible. So it's that thing you said before, when you're in the house and you're just making it yourself, you kind of feels like it's empty and you're just alone. But the truth is that there's like a massive network of people. It's just that all of us are kind of scattered in the working environment, waiting for this, this thing to be constructed. Ironically, it's constructed by the independents.
Yep. It is lovely though, and like you said, the experience of screening your work in front of people is what makes it all worth it.
Mhm.
It is just it is an experience like no other. It's very vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like the first times that I ever showed stuff, because I've animated as well,
Mhm.
and that kind of came from wanting to have like a few different skills up my sleeve. And I really, really enjoyed the process. But I did make an animation once, that was like really deeply personal and just like maybe I had put too much of myself into this film. And when screening it, I just was like, oh my God, like I can't believe everybody in this room is just like staring at this thing that I've made. And like
Mhm.
it felt so intense.
Yeah.
But then it was a really good response. And, people were really positive. And I was kind of like, oh my God, like I don't really know how to put this into words, like how that feels to be so it's such a yeah, it's so intense that it's just like you and a creation that you've entirely made, and a story that's just come out of your brain, and now everybody in the room is getting an insight into that. And yeah, like it's kind of incredible. It can be really, really fun. And certainly screening in the Boulder has been a lot of fun because I think I feel more confident in my skills. So I've been a wee bit like, okay, I know this is going to land well.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's scary, but it's like such a brilliant part of doing this kind of stuff,
Mhm.
getting that experience live with other
Yeah.
people.
That's an interesting point. I felt that initially as well with the first film, where I was like, this isn't at a good enough standard for people to watch it publicly. I definitely felt that, and I think one of the things that I really enjoyed was that after about 5, 10 minutes into the film, the response for people like laughing and stuff like that. But then once the silence happened, when there was silence at moments where I was purposely trying to
Oh,
create emotive responses, I was like, oh, I've got them, yes. So it's like, and it was about 8 or 9 minutes
exactly.
in that I thought that, so I could definitely relate.
Yeah. People tend to laugh at a couple of points in the boulder. They always laugh at the gran
Mm.
saying, your cousin Joe's doing well for yourself. And then the artist is like, is he not a drug dealer?
Yeah.
Um, and then there's another point as well, but throughout it, we wanted to kind of have the simultaneous like highs and lows. So
Mm.
sometimes, something's going really well for you, but like right around the corner, there's something dismal. And I think just like constantly fluctuating between that is the experience of being a creative person. And so it's kind of fun watching like people watch it and see like which part strikes a chord with them because I'm like I know that everyone in this room has lived through something that
Yeah.
happens in this,
Yeah.
the disappointment, the rejection, like actually getting a commission and then your friend saying that it's not that much and like yeah it just and then like having an exhibition in a gallery but you're next to the toilet like and again this was all inspired by real life so
Yeah. No, that, to be honest, I thought that was tremendous. You know, when you seen the lady that was she celebrated when she's eventually got the commission, that there was really
hmm
relatable. Because you're just like that euphoria of finally like it's almost like you could be a professional, but unless you get recognition publicly, you don't feel like you are. So
hmm
I really enjoyed that, and also the color themes throughout it, the flashing and it was really emotive. You know what you'd constructed. So that was how did you storyboard something like that?
Oh, actually painted storyboards.
Really?
Very apt because obviously the film's about a painter. But I knew kind of going into it that I wanted the whole thing to feel like a montage, for it to be a sequence of events in someone's life that just constantly shows the highs and lows of it,
Mm,
that there's not this upward trajectory for artists, that it's very much high and low. And it came from a lot of experiences of people in the film industry. But making her an artist meant that we could be really, really visual with like what it is that she creates.
mm,
You can physically hold the canvas and you can see it on the wall and stuff like that too. And yeah, as soon as I started sort of, I mood boarded like the kind of intense color, and I wanted it to be really expressive because she was a painter. And then I storyboarded it and yeah, I just busted out the acrylic paints. I was like, it makes total sense to do it this way because it's going to be really colorful. And it took me a while, don't get me wrong. I don't recommend everybody hand paints their storyboards. It was a long process, but it got me really thinking about like how to sort of set this all up. And then I kind of showed this to my cinematographer, and he went away and was like, I know exactly how we can get this intensity out of these lights and like how to set this up and position it. And like he did a fantastic job. There's a few videos on the Sonora channel about the behind the scenes because like it was really fun, and we filmed it all in one big room.
right.
So we like hired a studio in the East End of Glasgow, and we just had one corner that was like set up as a bedroom, and then another corner was like the granny's house, and then another corner was like an art gallery, like, and we all day long just kept moving around and moving stuff. And then when it came to, I always wanted to bring animated elements into it as well because it just felt right for the story and the look of it that we're not really in a real linear world. We're
Mm,
like inside her head a little bit, and we're also kind of just like blending and montaging together these moments in life. Yeah, it was quite difficult in terms of like handing people the script and saying like, here's the film. Do you understand it? To their credit, most people did get it, but it didn't read like an ordinary film. And there are things that a character says in one scene that like in another scene someone responds to. And so it was quite difficult to kind of like convey how that was going to come across. I think there was one person on set who was like, I'm not gonna lie, I did not know what was going on in this
mm.
film until I saw the edit. And I was like, that's okay. You were still able to show up and do your job.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was quite challenging, but storyboarding it was really helpful, especially for kind of um, showing how the shots related to each other and making sure we broke up, like, being super close and then being because the thing as well about using one big room for all your sets is that you can't really get a lot of wide shots.
Mm, yeah.
Otherwise, you'll show that you've got like all these other things going on in the room.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was challenging, but it was fun, and it just a lot of planning
Yeah, I
for
like the
sure.
idea that you're trying a wide shot and you've got somebody just on the cusp of it eating crisps, just looking at their phone.
Exactly, I know.
Yeah,
Or like if you pull out too much, you'll see the bed of
yeah,
another scene and scenario in the film that should not be at the art
yeah.
gallery.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite wild.
It's funny how much that would absolutely shatter the perspective which you're
I
capturing.
know.
Just completely
Well,
destroy it.
another lovely thing that kind of happened during production was when we went to do the sound mixer Ailey asked me, so this room, did you shoot it with like, was there a carpet? Like what kind of space are we working with so that I know how to mix the sound? Was this one shot in like a kind of hard floor below? And I was like, Ailey, they were all shot in the same room. And I'm so chuffed that you didn't realize.
That's brilliant. That's so good.
Like that proves that it's working. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Was it one day of shooting? Like you did one full day?
We did 2 days. On the
Right.
first day, we shot all of the scenes that didn't have people in them. Um, So there was a few where, like, what comes to mind initially, we were going to shoot a scene where the main character is on the phone and she's getting rejected. But in order to kind of save time and yeah, maximize using her performance later, because we only had one day with our actress,
Mm.
we just sat the phone on the floor and I paced about in front of the light so that there was like presence of a person in the shot, but like it was just yeah, it was the day before the actress was actually on set, so that we could capture quite a lot without having to have her in it. And then yeah, the main bulk of the edit was all done in one. The main bulk of the shoot was all done in one day.
Right. That's really cool. That's also really impressive. I mean, you're talking earlier about animation. I noticed that you've got something, I think it's in the production at the moment, or called Skinners. Could you talk a little
Yeah.
bit about
Absolutely. So, I'm pitching Skinners at Glasgow Film Festival a week tomorrow.
that? Right. Oh, excellent.
So I'm really chuffed. This has been a great experience. All of the animation I've done so far has tended to be mixed with live action or like a short film, like super short. And like I've never done, this is a narrative series.
Mm.
So yeah, having to think about how you plot things out across a television show, not knowing how many episodes you're going to be working with because you don't know who's going to pick it up and what they're going to offer. But it's been really fun. Again, the idea came from a place of disappointment. That really inspires me for some reason.
It's the Scottishness. That's what it is.
I know, right? That's our unique thing. That's how we
Yeah.
contribute to the world, spinning disappointment into something better.
Yeah.
So last year I was working for a company on online content. This is what I had been doing when I set Sonora up and I was keeping myself afloat. And unfortunately, I was made redundant. And then shortly after, I learned that they were using AI to do their edits and their like shorts and all their online content now. And I was like, oh my God, I've actually been replaced by AI. Like
Mm.
I didn't think this would happen so fast. So I had had this idea spinning about for a while about people who shrink down to a macro size and clean the skin of rich people. And I thought, well, this kind of marries up with the world we live in now where jobs are being lost to automation.
Mm.
So, in a world where, like, say, half of all jobs are now done by AI, what are humans going to do? And I thought maybe this whole shrinking down thing is kind of like one of those last areas of like hard physical labor that a machine can't do. And the world we live in now also really focuses on vanity and um, basically, if you are rich, you can afford to look eternally youthful or really like be however you want to be. And if you take a look at things like Ozempic, that was invented to help people with diabetes, but now it's used to make rich people look skinny. And, people have Botox face, or, when a few years ago everyone was having buccal fat removal, it's like now you can tell by looking at a person how rich they are just
Mm.
from their body because they've augmented it through their wealth and
Mm.
assets. So I really love this idea of the ultra rich and wealthy literally employing the poor to work on their body. And yeah, it all came together. I submitted this idea if you are a skinner, you are one of those people that shrinks down and cleans the skin of rich people. You take out the microplastics and the dead skin cells and you spray it with collagen.
Yeah.
And then our main character, Art, real name Arthur, but he likes to score out the end of his name. He is really reluctant. Like he's 20 years old, should be going off to uni, but basically is faced with what is the point of learning something over the next 4 years if by the time I'm finished, there's not going to be an industry anymore. There's no work for me to go into. And when his parents are both made redundant, he decides to enlist as a skinner and not tell anybody. And he really hates it. He's a technophobe. He doesn't like, he doesn't have a smartphone. He has a dumb phone. He listens to music on like a CD player rather than Spotify. Doesn't share his data. Is really anti-tech, but then pretty much is kind of forced into doing this job very reluctantly. But then once he's there, he begins to kind of uncover a bit of a mystery that's happening on the skin of a rich person. So the lovely thing about this as an animation is that I'm treating the skin of this rich person like a whole new world. It's kind of like Mars. And like he falls into a pore one day and it's like all swampy and full of acid and stuff like that. So it's really fun to play with. And I feel like I couldn't do this in live action because it would be far too grotesque,
Yeah.
unwatchable.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've been developing this over the last 6 months with Glasgow Film and their animatic lab. And yeah, we're going to pitch it next week and then see where it goes from there. Again, it'll be a long process. There's not a lot of artwork yet. I've been building like the look of the characters and the look of the world. But it's just such a beast and
Yeah.
things change as you write the story as well. So, but it's a really fun process. And it's really nice kind of being part of that, like getting to design your whole world. In live
Yeah.
action, you kind of just go and find a location and go, okay, we accept this is how it looks, and we'll put some things in to change it. But with animation, you can literally just, whatever you imagine, you can go for it.
Yeah, no, it's certainly one of those things where it gives you free reign to be much more creative than the regimented of like this is the location as you're saying. I like the fact that it's AI themed as well because inevitably I have the same fear where it's like I said before, like everything's drawn by hand. It's extremely what would be regarded probably archaic. My process, I don't even know, no, I don't even know the name. I said this before, but I was like, I'd made the CANNAMAN movie, and
Uh-huh.
I was sitting like about 2 or 3 months after it premiered, and I'm sitting eating my tea, watching behind the scenes of the Garfield movie, and the guy
Hmm.
was describing different animated processes, and they had like 6 or 7 in a line, and he said one, and I was like, oh, that's the one I do, and I've still forgotten.
Oh,
I've
no
still, I've
way.
still forgotten what
What
it
is
is.
your animation process?
So it's all like storyboard is relatively generic. It's scribbled down loose ideas, and then what I'll do is I'll then draw each scene on a sheet of A4 paper with pencil and pen. I'll go over it in pen, rub it out so that the sketching of the pencil's gone, kind of thing. I'll then scan it onto the computer with the printer, and then I'll color it in GIMP. And then what I do then after that, once I've colored it, I'll then drag it and drop it into Blender and synchronize it. And then
I
I'll use
see.
Audacity for the audio. So it's just every
Wow.
single thing is free. All of this is free. The only thing that I have to the thing I pay for is the paper and the pencils and stuff. That's
Yeah.
what I'm paying for. But it feels authentic, because I've got
Hmm.
everything. It's that thing where if you're only drawing it on a tablet, you're only an artist if the power's on, kind of thing. All your work's gone.
Yes,
So I really like I absolutely love it. But there is
that
that
is
moment
amazing.
where I kind of thank you. I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
I've seen some really incredible animations that have been hand painted as well.
right.
And so yeah, you can tell each board has physically existed at some point. And yeah, as it sort of plays together, there's a bit of a jitteriness that is just
Mm,
such a lovely charm to it.
yeah.
And I've always like wondered, like, God, how much time does it take? And like also, how much paper do you have in your house that's just like
It's nothing but a
every
fire
frame?
hazard. It's a
I
total
mean,
fire
I
hazard.
I guess maybe you could make a really extended flip book.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the thing is, it'd be intense because I mean, at the moment, like, in fact, I've got it's right behind me. I've got the folder that's got all the scenes in it so far, and there's hundreds of sheets of paper. Like, it's hundreds.
Wow.
But and so when the Canaman movie, what I did was obviously completed it all in the folder, and then with the tickets for the movie and like it was in the newspaper, the Fife Leader, I think it was, or the Fife Free Press, and so
Uh-huh.
it was all these little tidbits attached to the production are in the same folder. So it feels like sometimes I like the notion of like where you're watching Indiana Jones and he goes in, there's this old book and it's all like tattered and stuff, and it's got like
Hmm.
hidden esoteric knowledge inside of it. I love that, and like I love
Yeah.
the notion of that creative that dynamic, you know.
So, you know how recently all of David Lynch's stuff has been sold on eBay?
Has it?
Yes.
Oh, geez, oh,
So after he passed, I think there was like something in his will where he wanted his belongings to go to his fans.
right.
So they created basically all these auctions on eBay, and it's like a bunch of Barbie dolls,
Mm.
like things from films, scripts, but there's also just like really surreal stuff. I'm fairly certain there's like his toasty maker or something like that. Oh, his JBL speaker is
Phenomenal.
available to buy. And it got me thinking, like, if I die and I get, I don't know if I'll ever be as big as David Lynch, and I'm not sure I'd want to be, but like, if people were interested enough in my work, what weird shit from my house would go on my eBay listing? And I do own some kind of strange things. I've got quite a few things I've collected from flea markets that I like to
Yeah,
kind of add to the YouTube background
yeah.
here. Some books, some things I've built and made, um, some stuff from like childhood as well. And I reckon for you, like all of those like big stacks of scenes,
Yeah, yeah.
you never know, that could be in someone's collection one
I
day.
would love that. I mean, I would actually love that. Sometimes it feels, I like the notion of like creating your own lore. I love that. You know,
Hmm.
it's like because we're filmmakers, so we're acutely connected to story, and yet every single the process of us becoming the filmmaker and trying to achieve what our ambitions are telling us to walk towards, that's a lore, and it's we're actively engaged in it in real time. And I like the notion of that where it's just there's like landmark moments of us slowly walking towards it and bringing things to life.
Yeah.
Like watching the premiere of the Canman movie that day was surreal. It was in that moment I realised that in private, obviously, it took me about a year to make, and when I first started it, as you know better than anybody, it's an idea, it's a concept, and then you
Hmm.
sit with this concept and you kind of sit with it over and over, and you keep repeating it, and then you apply some additional information towards it, and then a year later, as a consequence of you applying this effort, you're affecting like the central nervous systems of a large group of people. It's really
Yep.
magical. It's a really bizarre. You can manipulate the emotional center of somebody based on an idea you had a year before. It's powerful.
Yeah, I definitely experienced this as well with Thrawn. When I did the crowdfunding campaign, I very much led with like my experience of growing up and winning a Burns competition, but also being
Hey.
told that Scots was slang. And this dynamic was really the seed that all these thoughts came from. And it turned out like, I mean, a lot of people connected with that. Someone wrote a Substack article about watching the video from a crowdfunder and how it made them reflect on their own life
Mm,
and growing up in Kenya and how there was a similar dynamic with English there. And it's like you say, like you never know like what you put out there and the impact that it will have on other
mm,
people. And that was really powerful because I didn't expect like for there to be that deep a connection with just me talking about when I was at school as a wee
yeah,
girl.
yeah.
And yeah, it made me realize there was a lot of responsibility, I guess, in filmmaking. And it's put the pressure on a little bit. I keep saying to people, like, I really do hope to do you proud. And I'm taking in as much as possible in terms of what like people's feelings and thoughts and weaving it in to the documentary as well. Because yeah, it is. It's film really moves people and it's inspired us to
Mm,
shape our lives around creating. But in other ways, it can inspire people to change their behavior or reflect on their habits or like even just feel happy
mm,
for an hour and a half,
yeah.
like so, a lot of people go and watch film because they just want to escape the real world for a little bit of time and you get to help that happen and make them feel good about themselves. So yeah, it is. It's very powerful.
Yeah, no, I agree fully. And one of the things I also have liked when I found out the notion of creating film is you give this almost like dualism, where you give them a relationship between perspective and the observer. So
Hmm.
inevitably, you have the observer, which is the person watching your art, and but you have the perspective which you've offered them. And I think that perspective the wider the perspectives that can be absorbed, kind of the greater your skill set. I think so. You get those directors that are able to apply a concept, and you have 50 different people talking about 50 different interpretations of it, and it really highlights the power behind that. Whereas reduce it down and you have two perspectives, obviously maybe the skill set's not quite as acute. So I really like
Yeah.
the notion of that, you know.
Absolutely. It is. It's really interesting that people bring their own experience to what they're viewing as well. So how they interpret it can land like really differently, but that's quite nice. And I think something that is really interesting is the contrast in when you make a project by yourself and you sort of sit there on your own and you're like, this is infused with just me.
Mm,
And then when you make something with others and their experience and input is coming into that as well. I'd say there's merit for both.
mm,
Like sometimes I really enjoy that like, okay, I know exactly what I'm making and this is what it's going to be. And then other times I'm kind of like, okay, here's the seed. And then other people get to like come and contribute to that as well. And it's going to be better, specifically this thing, because of all of the experiences together.
mm.
It is, it's really fascinating. It makes you feel very, very in touch with humanity, which is
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. I would love that. So that's one of the things that's missing because let's say I'm working 40 hours a week, and then doing this in my spare time and stuff. Obviously, I've got my son as well.
Yeah.
Like it's the notion of collaboration would be phenomenal. And I think what this has allowed me to do by being independent, like overwhelmingly independent in these creative spaces, it gives you the understanding of every single compartment of the creative process. And I think
Yeah.
that template then gets transferred over to that you can then orchestrate like a studio of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I always think like, the best people who direct or manage a team do actually know what all of the working parts are and what they're asking people to do. There's nothing worse than if someone's asking you to do something and they have no idea what it actually takes. And if you're explaining to them that, like, okay, well, it's not achievable in one day, or it's not the kind of thing where you would do that, and they don't know why, it can be really, really difficult. So, yeah, it's a great idea to try and get a bit of experience of each bit, and then at least you know what you're up against.
Yeah, I mean, and for independent filmmakers, you have a thing called the filmmaker's game plan. Like, what
Hmm.
is that? Like, where they can find this on the Sonora website, but could you talk a bit about that?
Yeah. So I basically, over all the projects I'd been working on, I'd worked with the BBC as an editor and animator quite frequently. Then also had been making my own short films and I'd been in residencies abroad and done stuff in the UK as well. And every time I sat down to a project, the paperwork was always completely different. Coming from different sources, getting lost along the way. There was a short film where someone showed up with a script that was like two versions ago. And then, you were always digging through email chains and stuff like that to try and find when somebody'd asked about this and, different notes and stuff like that. And it was just, yeah, it can be kind of chaotic in a lot of productions just because people come to it with just different experience. And I decided that I was going to make a place where every time I went into a film, everything was there.
Mm,
And it would update with all the latest versions of stuff, like your scripts, your mood boards, call sheets, and stuff like that too. And then, yeah, basically, whenever I was making a film, I could just share that with everybody, invite them in, and they can see exactly where we're at. So, started building it. It existed as kind of as a spreadsheet for a while, and then I found a way to basically make it into an online software. So I spent 3 months going through and making like a space where you can upload scripts, a space where you can schedule shot lists. And the great thing about this as well is that it synchronizes everything. So if I am writing in like who my members of my crew are and what their contact details are and any specifics about their attendance on the shoot, when it comes to the call sheet, I can just click a button and it draws all of that in. So if they're on set that day, their information is filled in. So it took 3 months to put together, and then a year ago I launched it because I was doing a training course in how to produce films, and had said, "Oh, don't worry, I've got like the management side of it down. I've built my own software to
mm.
make this happen." And she was like, "Are you selling that by any chance?" And I was like, "Well, I hadn't thought about it." So we put up a page on the website, and you can also buy it through a few third parties as well. And yeah, it's been really great actually. Yeah, it's it launched and it went out into the world. Lots of production companies and lots of individuals have bought it to help manage their productions. I did also run a course at one point where you bought the software and then you brought your film, and over 5 weeks, we would sit down for a few hours and we would plan out how to get the most out of the game plan and how to make your film happen. Like yourself, I've ended up too busy
Yeah.
to continue running that.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking of doing something as an online course that people can access still. But yeah, it was quite an eye-opener. I drew all of like the best parts of the experiences I'd had. So like when I was working on the BBC, their compliance paperwork was really strong. And I was like, okay, well, I'll take a slice of that. But then when I was like working abroad in Italy, like the way that they did more of their creative stuff and like managed like sharing scripts and things like that was really strong. So like I'll bring that in as well. And yeah, it just sort of like came together from all of the good ways that people were managing their work. And now it's one thing. So you can buy the game plan, and every time you start a project, you make a new one and you just fire in all the information you've got and it starts organizing your production for you. So it saves a lot of time.
That is absolutely phenomenal. When I think about this as well, when you first started your journey, like how would you describe the distance you've traveled in the past 5, 6, 7 years?
In my career,
Yeah, yeah.
I would say, yeah, quite far. I mean, before the pandemic, I exclusively worked on commercial content and it was for products. And I, was dreaming of getting a commission with the BBC or like working with film professionals, a bit of dialogue somewhere would be exciting. And then across that period of time, like so many opportunities have come along. And even though it's been difficult along the way, like just having myself out there, certainly like doing a lot of the social stuff has made me kind of more present in the scene. And then to the point that like now I don't have time
Mm.
to do all of the stuff that comes my way. And I'm kind of like, yeah, sending work to other people or like kind of, yeah, trying to manage like what I take part in. Being nominated for a BAFTA last year was like literally, I couldn't believe it. At first, I genuinely was in shock because I didn't even know that we were like really eligible. And I didn't know the director had submitted and like gone through the whole process. I knew he would want to, of course, but like I just didn't know that it was in the pipeline. And they don't tell you until they release it to the public. So there was just like so many kind of steps in my head of like understanding that it actually happened, that it was real. And yeah, if you told me that in 2019 it'll only take 6 years and then you'll be at the BAFTAs, I don't know if I would have believed it. I would
Well,
have wanted to charge through those 6 years as fast as possible.
yeah, understandable. That was for the work. Is that the dad in the volcano? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that must have been quite an
So that
experience.
is a film by Gavin Reed, on a similar wavelength to The Boulder, but it's a documentary about how he went to art school. He built a 6-foot volcano and he thought, this is going to make it into the Tate Modern. This is going to be my ticket. I'm going to be an artist. And then it spent 5 years in his dad's shed. And Gavin reflects upon the disenfranchisement of art school and what it actually is being an artist. And it's really funny, even though it's really dark. Again, super Scottish.
Yeah.
And it really, really struck a chord at film festivals. Like I think, again, much like The Boulder, a lot of artists watch it and see themselves reflected back.
Mhm.
So yeah, it managed to get into a few festivals that were BAFTA qualifiers. And then he submitted it, and lo and behold, one day in October, everyone in the world knew. Everybody was sharing stuff and sending us congratulations, and we were like, "What for?"
Yeah.
There we are. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was super exciting. We didn't win the BAFTA, but we did not feel like losers at any point.
Yeah, yeah, not at all. You see it on your Instagram when you show up and it's like the award ceremony, and that experience is a unique thing to be a part of.
It is absolutely. And again, like we were talking about screenings being this like really intense experience of like your art being out there, but this is even like, taking it to another level. And Um, yeah, the whole thing makes you just feel really appreciated.
Mm,
I edited My Dad in the Volcano as a favor to Gavin because we knew each other
mm,
for like 10 years and then he was doing this project. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. We cut it in my bedroom in my old flat
yeah,
over like 3 or 4 months one summer in the evenings and weekends that we had around work.
mm,
It did not feel like that would be the type of project that would end up being BAFTA nominated. And so when we were there, I was like, fuck, like
yeah,
this wee favor I did for my pal has turned into like a hugely significant moment. And you're treated with such respect in that space. I mean, you usually are in like festival environments and any sort of screenings, but like it really kind of is about celebrating how hard it is to make things happen and at every moment in the night you're made to feel like you've really achieved something significant. So through for all of the difficulty, like that night is definitely worth it. And yeah, like I say, we didn't win the award, but at no point did we feel like losers. We were just like, this is amazing, just to be here and feel part of the world. And when, like Ewan McGregor, James McAvoy, David Tennant, when they're all sitting in the same room as you, you're kind of like, okay, I feel good about what I've
yeah.
done now.
No, quite right. And the thing is, that'll be relatable to so many people. The notion of not getting into art school. So I tried, or like being successful in that world. I applied for art school after I'd done like the full CANNAMAN series, the comic book series had been established, and there was a mountain of work. And I remember because I sent it over to Duncan and Jordanson and the application, and I got a response saying, you can't get in because you have no art qualifications. And that was the thing. And I was like, mate, there'll be nobody in your class that has a fully established animation. By this point, there was probably about 50 couch skits, which are 2 minute animations, and the
Hmm.
12 8 minute Cannaman animations, which I adapted from the comic series. So I was like, there's
Hmm.
nobody in your class who's got this. And because I've not got an art higher or something, I didn't get in. But there was a
That's
part of me.
absurd.
Yeah, yeah, but there's a part of me
Yeah.
that was kind of like, I was like, oh, so this is the real artist's story. It's not, that's what it felt like.
Well, that's it. And like, there isn't really a way to measure, like, because art is so subjective. Like,
Yeah,
you can't really say that, like, oh, a person like who qualifies to come and do this has to have met this criteria. It's like, but you are a living, working artist. You are
yeah.
making things. Like,
Mm.
that is the whole point, and that is kind of how all of this comes together. Like, yeah, I find that insane.
Yeah, and the
Absolutely.
irony of it was that 18 months, 2 years later, my movie was premiering at the theatre with like over 120 people there, and it was in the paper, and the whole time, like, oh, I'm not qualified. I
That's,
just I thought it was kind
yeah,
of
it's
funny.
very backwards. I think
Yeah,
that is partially kind of why getting into the arts can be so
mm,
frustrating, is the inability to kind of prove to people, that like what you do and the abilities you have meet their expectations.
yeah,
Similar to funding applications, I feel like although a lot of them they do select based on the idea, there's
mm,
also a lot of criteria about an individual. And I get that they want you to
mm,
have experience, but sometimes they'll have requirements that you're just like, I can't meet those requirements until I go through
yeah,
like what I want, what I'm applying for right now, like it's so expensive. Like you say, you spend a lot on materials in filmmaking, like everything you go to do costs money.
mm,
And there's only so far you can get asking your pals to do you favors. Nobody on the boulder got paid unless they did spend materials. So like the makeup artist and the artist that did the canvases like got compensated for actually like using materials. But it still cost me like a fortune in travel, in catering, in renting the space that we rented, a few props. Like it snowballs.
yeah.
And you can't, it's difficult being an artist and making your work happen out of nothing.
Mm.
So surely if you can do that, it proves more than if you have
Yeah.
something on paper.
Yeah, no, I fully agree, and I think it's one of those things as well. Just talked about the notion of that, like the self promotion thing. So I was just saying, it cost about £700 for the venue.
Hmm.
What I did was I had to apply for. I reached out to businesses, local businesses, managed to get about 5 or 6 sponsors independently. They paid for the venue, and then I paid out obviously my own pocket for like the merch, the t-shirts, the
Yeah.
mugs, all that kind of thing. And then I was fortunate to be able to sell them all. So I made about £200, £300 on the merch, and that was then so it's a year's worth of work for about £300, which is interesting. And that's why so the hope for the Donny movie is to use the full movie as like a pitch for a series after it, and that's the main thing,
Excellent.
So my
That's
plan
a really
is.
good idea. And it's something that, like, with Skinners, I've been advised as well that, like, if I can make a proof of concept, to kind of get some presence out in the
Mhm.
world, get some people interested in the idea, and also kind of display to people what it would look like. Another one was someone said you could make a graphic novel. And I was like, okay, I feel like there's enough for me to tackle in the film
Yeah,
world without also having to figure out how to make a graphic novel. But I
uh,
knew where it was coming from. It's like
yeah.
maybe making something small can lead to something bigger.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting you should say that because in the interim between doing the Cannaman movie and the Donny stuff, I made a graphic novel about care, the care homes,
Hmm.
and I called it Take Care. I was working doing I was a KP, just washing dishes all day, and you seen the interactions between the carers and the residents. I was like, this is a story. These people, this is really
Hmm.
vibrant social, elements in here. So yeah, it wasn't. It took me a year. I did the first 8 pages and then stopped, did the animations, and then it was 4.5 years later I finished it. So it was funny. So the first 8 pages are four
Yeah.
years before the rest of it, which was kind of cool. But just talking about monetization, I mean, we're essentially done, Ashley. But monetization for anybody that's independent, what advice would you give them?
So, okay, there's a lot of avenues to go down. I would say that, yeah, basically make sure that so it depends what kind of monetization you're going for, but if you are looking for sponsorship from businesses or individuals, make sure that you have got like a really good portfolio of work so that people trust that you can execute what you say you can. It was a bit like when I was doing the crowdfunder, I felt that my campaign video had to be really tight and strong. And I know I filmed it in my living room, but we've made every effort to make that look more professional than it actually was. Because I was like, if I'm asking people to donate money, they have to see something that they're like, oh, this is good quality. I could
Mm,
watch this for an hour and a half.
yeah,
And if you're not putting in that effort, that could hold you back. And I get that it's difficult if you to make something in order to access monetization, but yeah, you kind of need to prove yourself in that way, and then it will grow. But kind of on that similar wavelength, I monetized my YouTube channel. This is actually the second channel I've had that I monetized, and basically it takes a lot of persistence and a lot of patience. You might think nobody's watching, because you've only got like 100 views on your video and you've not taken off and stuff like that. But if you are posting something consistent and good and you are showing up week after week with quality, eventually you are going to hit a critical point where people discover you, and then your back catalogue again confirms quality and that you are who you say you are, that all that proof is there that you are good at what you do. And I've found that my YouTube channel doesn't have like the biggest audience. Some videos really take off and get thousands and thousands of views. Other videos land and hardly
yeah,
get anything at all. That is just the nature of it. But what has happened off the back of this is that every time I've gone for a job, my YouTube link is there. I'll say to them that in amongst my experience, I've been running a channel for the last almost 2 years now. I've posted a video every week. I research, I write some notes, I film it myself. I used to edit it myself. I now do have an editor, so fair enough. But that
yeah,
shows I can manage people.
yeah,
And that actually has ended up being the most clicked link on my CV because it proves so much. And people get to know me a little bit through the videos. And then also, like, yeah, kind of it shows a self-discipline that being paid to do a job doesn't,
yeah.
which is ridiculous because on my CV, there's also like stuff for the BBC,
Mm.
BAFTA nominated short film, like, really incredible stuff. But that really proves a lot to people. And so sometimes I think, like, you can access more opportunity in a roundabout way. Through my YouTube channel, I've been approached to make content for organizations. And I've been asked to like go and deliver workshops. And also, yeah, my some of my YouTube videos are now shared by Creative Scotland and Screen Scotland to other filmmakers, to give them a bit of advice on, oh, how do you crowdfund, or like how do you go about like this kind of step in Scottish media. So yeah, and through that, I've obviously been paid for opportunities and had sponsorship for things as well. So it's not always like a super straightforward path. It's really about creating what you're proud of
Mhm.
and knowing and trusting that what you do make is going to spin off into those other areas, and the rewards will come.
Mhm. Excellent. That's really brilliant advice. Well, let's see. We've essentially covered everything that I was liking to talk about. Do you have anything you'd like to add before we go?
Um, I don't know. Yeah, I guess if anybody is, out there and sort of maybe wondering where to go creatively or needs a bit of inspiration, I've shared as much as I possibly can about working in the industry in Scotland. I've got you covered, so please go have a look through the Sonora channel, and I'm sure you'll find something that sparks a bit of inspiration. And I'd love to hear from people as well. Like, I do genuinely really like networking and meeting new folk out there. So say hello as well if you want to, because it's such a small community. So we've got to band together.
Yeah, we certainly do. And let's see, this has been really fun, and actually, you're an absolute compliment to the film industry in Scotland. So
Oh,
just keep
thank
keep
you.
doing what you're doing. It's really helpful.
Oh, thank you so much.